Well, welcome to Whoop Whoop. This is Moreton Telegraph Station up in far north Queensland, and this really is the middle of nowhere. And this, on the other hand, is the 2016 model year Volkswagen Amarok. This is the 8-speed core version, so it doesn't have the low ratio transfer case that gives it the super low gears for climbing over rocks and in and out of trees. Volkswagen is pretty tired though of hearing journos like me telling you that because it doesn't have a transfer case, it can't be a proper off-road vehicle. So we're going to try and find out either way. The plan is to drive this vehicle, and the only modification is a snorkel because there's some pretty decent river crossings, and we're going to go all the way over 3 days to the tip of Cape York, the very top of mainland Australia. And whether we get there or not, well, that's what we're going to find out. Now, there have been some changes to this car for 2016, and I'll go through those now. Okay, so this is the core model. It's not the entry-level fleet car, it's the entry-level private buyer version of the Amarok. And the changes include new Bluetooth and better stereo connectivity and a painted front bumper. Oh, and a leather steering wheel. Now, none of those things are going to help you get to the tip of Cape York, but this car also has a new type of Pirelli ALT tyre, and in combination with the locking diff that the core models always had, the idea is that in 2.5 days from now, we'll be catching fish this big. So, what are we waiting for?
Our journey started out pretty gently with just a few well-made gravel roads, including a section of the far north bush that was on fire, driving every lizard, snake and insect onto the road where they were being picked off by hawks, an amazing sight. But pretty soon things started to get more serious, and we began arriving at the notorious river crossings in this part of the world. It's always tempting to walk a river crossing first, but when the signs tell you that the crocodiles will probably beat you back to the car, then discretion becomes the better part of valour. Nobody wants to become a statistic out here, and believe me, people still get taken by crocs every year. The really tough river crossings feature almost vertical drop-ins and are narrow enough to remove mirrors. The trick is to ease into them as slowly as possible, but even then, you're likely to spend a certain amount of time on 3 or even 2 wheels as the vehicle balances on the abyss. This is where your off-roading skills come into the reckoning, and you'll spot the tough sections because there'll probably be a dozen or so locals lurking about to A, watch you get stuck, and then B, toss you a tow rope to haul you out. These rivers can be deep too, and after a bit of unseasonal rain just before our trip, we often had the water lapping at the top edge of the bonnet, and at one stage we even had one of the Amaroks start to float away. Fortunately, the driver knew enough to keep his foot on the throttle, and the VW paddled its way across to firmer ground and dragged itself onto dry land. Impressive stuff. But the scenery and the campsites are definitely worth the effort of a trip to the tip. And after a couple of days crossing rivers and scrambling over rocks, the payoff is one of the most magical bits of Australia. There's accommodation at the tip where you can get a bed, a meal, a shower and a washing machine, or you can just camp in one of 1,000 magnificent pieces of bushland. And because it's only those who make the effort who get here, you'll have large chunks of it pretty much to yourself.
Well, here we are, we made it. This is the tip of Cape York, as far north as you can go on the Australian mainland. And the Amarok is pretty much unscathed. It's slightly scathed. There is a bit of bark missing off the front and a ding in the rear corner, but we're all friends here, we don't need to talk about that. Now, we did it the tough way too. I mean, the Telegraph Road presents plenty of challenges for any four-wheel drive. But of all the river crossings, and there were plenty, only one really gave us any cause for concern, and that was the infamous gunshot. And that's because you drop down a vertical entry into a bog hole, so you can't maintain momentum. And ironically, it wasn't a low ratio transfer case that made us think twice about tackling it. Rather, it was the lack of a winch. So why did we bring a car with a winch up here? Well, because German headquarters of VW have consistently said no to VW Australia when they've suggested that somebody develops a bull bar for this car. And without a bull bar, it's very difficult to properly mount a winch. So what am I going to take home from this trip, aside from a lot of photos? Well, I think it's this. I don't think you'll spend any time being disappointed in what the Amarok can't do, but I think there'll be lots of times when you'll be amazed what it can do. And that's the point, really. I mean, an off-road four-wheel drive, a proper one, is still the best way and often the only way to reach these fantastic remote places in this country.